So yeah, my talk today is going to be about building a COVID-19 vaccine appointment solution in 4 weeks. And just quickly, what I'm going to cover today, so I'll give you a bit of context about who I am and accuRx, the company I co-founded, a bit of context about the vaccine program and why we decided to even do this. And then I've tried to focus in on sort of 5 key pillars, which I think have helped us move fast in building this. And then I'll just touch briefly at the end on some of the challenges we faced and what the future of this product looks like. So who am I? My name's Laurence. I'm the CTO. I'm one of the co-founders of accuRx. I started coding in September 2013. And feel free to tweet me during or after at Laurence Bargery. Happy to take additional questions there as well. And when many people here probably won't know who accuRx are, so I'll give you a brief intro to us as a company. So we're a health tech startup. I met my co-founder Jacob on a program called Entrepreneur First back in 2016. We actually started off looking at antibiotic resistance, so trying to make software to make better prescribing decisions for clinicians. And in 2018, we pivoted to look at communications in healthcare. And today our vision is that everyone involved in a patient's care can communicate with each other. So very simple aim to describe, but still quite far from reality at the moment. And just to give you a brief little idea of what the actual things we do are, so our sort of bread and butter has always been text messaging. That's what we started off doing in 2018. We also do asynchronous communication. So this is an example of a patient filling out an asthma survey remotely, but it could also be that a patient is just responding to a question that their GP has asked them or sending a photo back to their GP. And we also do things like video consultations or allowing a clinician to send a document to a patient as well. And more recently, we've been building accuBook. So this is our product to help book vaccination appointments. This is a view of what the clinician UI looks like, where people can manage cohorts and see if patients have booked first or second doses. And this is what it would look like on the patient end, just sort of a simple booking flow. And to just give an idea of the scale we're operating at, so overall we do about 400,000 texts a day now. We've messaged about half the population. We're used in 99% of GP practices in England. And we've now booked 10 million vaccination appointments. So to give you a bit of the why and the how of when we actually made this decision to work on this product, if we roll back to sort of early November last year, it became clear that GP practices were going to play a key part in helping deliver COVID-19 vaccines. That was alongside sort of mass vaccination sites and jabs in the community. And we very much felt like software was going to play a part in helping here. GPs already do a great job delivering things like flu vaccines, but obviously some key differences here would be the scale of the task and also the fact that there were 2 vaccines, not 1 needed as well, 2 jabs. And we even spent a bit of time sort of crystallizing our thoughts and ended up writing a blog piece about how we thought software and more specifically some of the technology we already had at hand could help. And we then really went back and forth for a few days trying to work out, is this something we want to jump into? We already had 4 product teams working on things at the time. And for us, this culminated in just having a go, no-go meeting. So this was my calendar on Friday the 13th of November, trying to pull a few key stakeholders together and say, what are the pros and cons of us doing this? Do we have the team? What are the sort of second and third order effects on the rest of the business going to be? And ultimately, we decided it was aligned very much with our mission. We had a team who could actually execute this particular challenge, and we were comfortable with some of the other effects. And for us, that then meant we went and asked the team, is this something you want to do? We always make sure that we give the team the choice to decline it as well. And they said yes. And so next Monday, we already started. So this was a virtual whiteboard from the Monday after that Friday meeting. We got all of the team together and we started writing down everything we knew at the time, which wasn't much, and trying to map out what a basic clinician and patient booking flow could look like. And we decided that we wanted to have a mock-up of what the design looked like by the end of that week. And we were going to aim to have patients booking before Christmas. And there were loads of questions at that time as well. So we also ran a user webinar where we tried to gain as much information from them and see how they were thinking about it and give them a chance to ask questions of us as well. So wanted to start getting this product out there. So now I'm going to move on to these sort of 5 key pillars of how we've tried to go from something that's just an idea to release in the space of a month. So the first one is planning for scale. So we knew that we had quite widespread GP adoption and that might lead to this product being adopted quite rapidly. And so for us, what that meant was before even code started being written, we started looking at what a sensible database structure might look like. And so these are examples from Notion pages where we started to look at the classes. We went through example flows of what particular things might look like. And we even went as granular as actual queries and trying to work out, would those be sensible queries given the data structure and amounts of data we would have. We also used, modern cloud infrastructure, so we're hosted on Azure, and we decided to pull out this particular database that hosted all of our sort of appointment data separately from the rest of the accuRx infrastructure. And that really allowed us to do two key things. One, scale this database independently, but also meant if there were problems with this particular piece of our infrastructure, it didn't affect all the other things we were doing, so the sending text messages and the surveys. We also used read-only replicas, so we put all of our sort of text message reminders and lots of things that could more do background queries through the secondary database, which left our primary database for things like booking, which has to be up all the time, to be more stable. The second thing is our build and release process. So we've always been very strong advocates of sort of strong code review and pull requests at accuRx. We use GitHub, like many other people will do here. Our VP of engineering, Ben, has written a great blog post about how we do this. And we always very much encourage people to, A, give an overview of the work and any sort of user-facing elements that have changed, but also for people who are reviewing the code to leave lots of comments to actually check out the branch and go through it. And of course, we make sure that all the associated tests have been run and passed before someone can check in that code. And for us, we use a methodology called trunk-based development. So when a check-in actually does go in, that goes straight into our sort of main branch. It's immediately built and tested again, so no code can actually go out the door that hasn't, again, had everything green. And for us, that goes straight into a staging environment where we can do some manual testing, and that might be the developer who's worked in it or the product manager on the team. And then we can promote that exact version of code from our staging to production environment. And in particular, that promotion aspect has been very useful for us. So I just took a snapshot from a couple of weeks back, and you can see that we tend to be releasing a lot of our components at least once a day, if not multiple times a day. And in particular, in healthcare, that's quite unusual. Things often used to be on like quarterly releases. And for me, this is particularly important because we want to try and minimize the commit differences that are going out each time when we release our software. That means if there is an error, it's easy to roll back, and the rollback's quite minimal as well. So the third part is monitoring. It's something that we've always tried to embrace at accuRx, having a really good understanding of how people are using our products and any sort of errors or warnings they might be hitting. And we made a really deliberate decision early here to embrace quite a high signal to noise ratio. So we wanted to have lots of warnings and errors throughout the vaccine work to make sure we really understood if anything was going wrong. And so to shield the rest of the development team from that, we combined Sentry, which is a piece of SaaS software where you can put all of your warnings and errors through, with Slack. And we used something called root tagging so that all of our logs specifically related to the vaccine product just went to one Slack channel. And that meant everyone else and other products didn't get sort of lifted with these, but also meant we could collaborate really quickly in Slack when we did see errors. And then we could decide, is that actually just an assumption that isn't quite right, or is there an actual user being affected by a bug? We also have some sort of escalations that we would look at. So these are across all of our products, but we tend to be alerted if higher level things go wrong. So we monitor things on the left, like our general ratio of HTTP success codes. And if that drops below 95%, and then your absolute sort of worst case log is on the right, where our uptime robot tells us that the web server is just completely reporting us down. And again, we use Slack to centralize all of these. It was also important to give our product teams a really good idea on this vaccine product of how people were using it. And so very early on, we combined Azure application insights with here as a dashboarding so that we understood, how many invites were being sent, how many bookings were being done, the time between someone getting a mobile invite and then actually booking in. And we always try and do this so that our product teams can view these and actually make good decisions given how people are using the product. The fourth pillar is to learn and iterate. And if there's one slide that you take away from my talk today, it's that user feedback is absolutely everything. And for us, a lot of this actually comes from social media. So we were lucky enough that we already had a sort of 6,000 strong Facebook group where we have lots of users in it. And we also had a specific to this product, accuBook WhatsApp group. And we really try and use those groups to understand if people are seeing any issues, if there are bits of the tool that they're not understanding, and also allows users to share tips with each other. We try and combine that with a strong user research focus at accuRx, where every product team has a user researcher. In this case, we have Alice, who then uses both the combination of those groups and doing lots of actual usability testing and user interviews to see how people are thinking about things like booking people in for second doses and just get a feel of how people are using the software. The final pillar, which I couldn't go without mentioning, has been the team, who've been absolutely fantastic during this time of intense build. And in particular, I wanted to zoom in on the product manager tech lead relationship. So in that case, this is Jen and Mike, who were the PM and tech lead on this product. And we put a really strong emphasis on this at accuRx. So we almost see these as like co-founders of a mini product team. And we really try and emphasize that they spend a lot of time sort of one-to-one together, and in one-to-ones with their team. We were lucky enough that Jen and Mike had already spent a lot of that time together and building a lot of trust and psychological safety with each other and their team before switching to this product. And to give an example of also Jen's sort of calendar in the morning, you can see she has every morning a catch up with Mike, a general vaccine stand-up where they make sure that the rest of the organization are aware of any changes, in particular our support team or maybe our commercial team. And they also have a team stand-up. And the reason I wanted to zoom in on this is it may seem like a lot of communications every single morning, but when moving really quickly, it's so important that things don't fall between the cracks and that people feel very much in the loop. And so, yeah, that's particularly important for us, is that there's lots of communications in a very quickly moving product. And we've also been incredibly supported by the rest of the accuRx organization. So particularly wanted to look at the support team. This was a slide from one of their recent shows and tell, and you can see here they've had 22,000 conversations in the last 90 days, which is up over double from the previous quarter. And so for us, what that meant was they were responding to lots and lots of queries about how to use the product, and ultimately actually meant we had to grow our support team from 5 to 12 people overnight. So incredible effort by them, both to support the product and to try and hire in really quickly to that team. I wanted to touch on a few of the challenges that we have found whilst building this. The first one is just the wider landscape of the vaccine program and lots of things changing that haven't been in our control. So to zoom in on one example, people will remember sort of around New Year's, the government changed the strategy for the gap between doses from 3 to 4 weeks to 11 to 12 weeks, which has been a great decision. I think it's played out well over the last few months in terms of getting numbers vaccinated. But for us, our original piece of software booked both doses at the same time. And we also had a lot of people already booked for second doses in early January. And so this particular announcement meant pulling people off annual leave just before New Year's. And we had to quickly change the patient booking flow to only book one dose and change the clinician software so that they could mass cancel lots of second doses. So just a quite challenging time for the team and something we had to turn around in sort of 48 hours. The second one has been the tech eventually breaking. So this is a lovely graph from when our database did hit 100% one particular day. So whilst we tried to make a lot of those intelligent decisions up front, and we did try and plan for scale, we've had to release so many features and tweak the product so much as things have changed. The technical debt eventually does catch up with you. And it's been a real learning for me of how quickly, if you don't have parts of your sort of sprint process paying some of that down, it can catch up with you. And so now we're trying to go back and change some of the user flows, the way people interact, and particularly on the clinician side, to make sure this doesn't happen. The good thing is if you do use cloud technologies, it's very easy often to scale and give yourself that bit more leeway. And the final challenge for us has been team burnout. It's fair to say it has just been a workload that's been quite unmanageable for quite a long time for the team. It's not something that we'd ever want to impose on the team. And in particular, accuRx, one of our values is actually balance. We really believe that people do their best work when they're happy and healthy outside of work. And that whilst you may need to occasionally sprint, that shouldn't be over a sustained period of time. And so for us really here, the challenge is now moving into that more sustainable way of working again and giving the team some time back for the extra effort that they've put in. Finally, I just wanted to touch on what the future looks like for this product. So the first part is that we'd love it to be used for September jabs. It's becoming clear that probably people who are vulnerable will need a booster dose in September. And so we'd hope that we could keep the product going and enable continued efficiency in rolling that out. Second part is that we're currently developing some recording software. So whilst we've just focused on the booking software, we are actually also developing software when you go to have your vaccination that helps someone record it. And so we're hoping to put those together to have an end-to-end booking and recording flow and release that over the next couple of weeks to continue to make the product better and ultimately the lives of people doing the vaccinations that bit easier. And the final part is that these COVID vaccinations, whilst there are lots of things that have been particular about them, this actually is part of a general sort of problem called recall. And our product team that's working on this will be looking in the future to how we can take lots of the elements that we've developed in terms of cohorts, getting people in for particular times and dates, and then applying that to things like flu jabs, smear tests, cancer screenings, lots of problems where you need to get a cohort of people and pull them back in. And that's it. Really love to speak to you today. We're, like many people here, hiring across lots of roles at the moment, and we're going from sort of 80 overall to about 150 this year. Lots of those roles are engineering, so feel free to check out our careers page. And again, feel free to tweet me at Laurence Bargery.